trust yourself, darn it. You're great. Here are 5 color picking mistakes that you might be making. Hit the like button. Big thank you to Mighty Boards for helping us out with today's video. It's actually the perfect video for them to be a part of, but let's get into it. Picking paint colors is no easy task, even for the professional paint professors out there, even for our lovely subscribers that watch all our videos faithfully, even for me. There's a near infinite amount of color combinations that you can use for any project, and that makes things pretty complicated for everybody involved. Let's talk about these 5 mistakes, and of course, I'm leaving the juiciest one for last. So, sneaky me. The first and quickest way to make a mistake is to make a quick decision on your paint color. While this might work for some people to simply pick a color and just commit to it, it more often than not leads to frustration and disappointment. Picking a paint color is a big deal because ideally, whatever you're painting, you want to be able to enjoy it for a decent amount of time. Not only are you spending money on the paint itself, but there's also a good possibility that you've hired someone to do the job as well. There's no harm in at least taking a night or two just to sleep on it. Not literally like sleep on top of the color or anything like that, but just let everything sink in. Have a think about whether or not you really want those purple baseboards or that orange ceiling in your kid's bedroom. Might sound like a good idea at first, but maybe not the day after once you've come to your senses. But if you still think it's an awesome idea a day or two after, then maybe it has some merit. You also have to consider that lighting conditions change day to day. So maybe you like the color when the sun's out and those rays are coming through your window, but not so much on a gloomier day. Either way, before you start, take a second to stop and think, and at least watch the other points in this video before you pick your color. The second mistake I see a lot of people make, and this was especially the case when I worked at the paint store, you should not make a final decision about a paint color at the paint store. The color may look wonderful there, but the paint store itself almost certainly has different lighting conditions, a different color temperature than what you have at your home. The paint store doesn't have your flooring, it doesn't have your furniture, it probably doesn't have much natural light either, which means it's unlikely to change as much as it will in your home if you got like a nice, big, beautiful bay window, for example. You'll be surprised how much of an impact the aspects of your home have on your paint colors. You may see something that you really love online on your computer screen, but I can tell you from experience, a lot of those pictures on Pinterest are taken with optimal natural lighting, or in some cases, really fancy studio lighting that will not replicate how it'll actually feel in person and in practicality. It's just some of that Pinteresting Hollywood magic happening. So before you do anything, you want to see the color at home. And although those little color chips can be handy, the third mistake is relying on them alone. Don't make the mistake of not testing out your colors. And Mighty Boards are a friend of our channel because their large, flexible tester boards allow you to not only bring the color home so you can see it in the room you're going to be painting in, huge, 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 but you also get a much larger surface area to view that color and see what the paint actually looks like on a large surface. It's such a handy tool because you get the equivalent of a much larger swatch that you can physically move around different parts of your room and assess the color properly. You don't even need to go and buy tester paint in some cases. I've actually borrowed some of my friends' touch-up paint from their house and put it on a Mighty board so I could see what a color looks like in my home. Get creative with it. So yes, when you bring the color home, go big with a Mighty board. I'll leave their information down below. Also, an extra little pro tip, when you're testing colors out with your Mighty board, try and keep your samples separate from one another, as they could easily influence one another and confuse you even more. I like to analyze my tester boards next to or against something that's white. So normally white doors, or at least right against a white door frame, to act as a bit of a control to fairly compare the color to. So as a quick recap, we've talked about seeing the color at home, actually testing it out, and not making a snap decision. The fourth mistake is one that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. This is some real talk. You just can't make a decision because you've taken too much time. Your classic analysis paralysis situation where you've gone down the rabbit hole of paint color and you're completely in over your head, drowning in a sea of swatches. I know, I've been there. I've seen the houses with 40 different off-white paint samples all over my customer's hallway. In my opinion, in my experience, it's always best to find a happy medium of careful decisiveness. It's not going to do you any good to stare at 20 color chips on your kitchen table for weeks on end. And I know some of you watching do this. You'll never find the answers like that. It's much better to think of the more simpler questions like, do I want cozy warmth or something cooler and fresh? Am I a fan of red or blue? What did James put on his top 10 list? If you're in a situation where you're deciding between 10 or more colors, it's definitely time to stop searching and start trimming. In so many cases, my customers end up picking one of the first colors they come across, so there is no need to find those 39 others to compare against. Everyone is going to have their process, which I understand, but I feel there is a real diminishing returns to color selection the more time you spend toiling in the color swatch weeds. But finally, the last and probably the point that's most personal to me and maybe a little controversial to certain designers, but I really, really do feel this way. The fifth mistake is you're spending too much time looking for your soulmate. Seriously. You're looking for that one paint color that you were destined to choose and find for this project. The absolute perfect color choice to finish the palette. Why are you putting all that pressure on yourself? Now, luckily, I feel like I found my soulmate in life, but I will never really claim to have found that singular perfect color for any particular project. I believe there are always many different choices that you can make when it comes to your interior design. You'll have the vast amount of subjectivity from person to person, but even as a designer, there's so many different ways you can take different designs, so to think that there is some magic formula out there for every paint combination is just not true. Just because you have simply white on your baseboards and oak floors, that doesn't mean edgecomb gray is your only wall color choice. There's so many variables to take into consideration. I implore you all to continue to try out things, explore creatively, and trust yourself, darn it. You're great. Now you know the mistakes, so you can avoid making them. And I hope you continue to enjoy the process. And I think this video might also interest you quite a bit, so check it out.